So why do we get such a low score in the IELTS speaking test? There are some mistakes that we make that we are not even aware of. Good day guys and welcome back to my channel, Zane's English Lounge, where we learn English comfortably and in a relaxed environment. So guys, in this video we're going to be talking about the mistakes that people make in the IELTS speaking part 2 of the test. So let's get into it. Mistake number 1, going off the topic. This is a very common mistake in the IELTS speaking test, as we sometimes mistake our fluency for fluency and coherence, where these two need to work together. We need to be fluent, yes, but we also need to be coherent in that we need to be speaking about the topic that we are given. So we often make this mistake and try to speak about things, but not about the thing that we need to speak to about. An example of this where the cue card says, describe a place that you would like to visit. And then you start talking about the place, which is good. And then slowly you begin to drift off the topic. And then you start to talk about your friend who lives nearby. You start to talk about their job they do, their family, and by the time you get to the end of the speaking topic, you are way off what you needed to be speaking about. So how do we combat this, or how do we find a solution to this? We need to first pause when we are speaking and mentally do an assessment of, am I still on the topic or am I going off? If you find that you're going off the topic, you can say a phrase like, but anyway, what I really love about the place is, so you redirect yourself. So basically you need to do that mental assessment and check, am I going off the topic or am I still on the topic? An example of this is in the cue card. If we get a question, describe a book you recently read, right? We see the bad answer here will be, I read this novel, my sister gave it to me, she works at a bookstore downtown, the bookstore has a coffee shop inside, I love coffee, especially lattes. So as you can see, the question was to describe a book you have recently read, and we are giving a coffee review, right? So bad answer. We can use this example as one of the good answers. I recently read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It tells the story of a shepherd boy chasing his dreams across the desert. What I loved most about the book was about how it made me reflect on my own goals and the idea that the journey matters more than the destination. So, right, we can see the candidate drifted a lot in this topic, which affected fluency and coherence. Now it tells the examiner, I really don't understand what you're asking me, but I'm just speaking. Okay, so we need to check this, and this is one of the common mistakes that people make, is going off topic. So let's go to mistake number 2. So another common mistake is speaking too little. Now this directly involves our planning, right? So if we plan very little, or if we have a bad planning, we are going to speak very little, because we will not have ideas, or we will not have elaboration. We cannot expand our ideas because we have not planned for that. So good planning equals good timing, right? So bad planning equals bad timing, and more often than not, we will fall short below the 2 minute mark. So speaking too little is one of the mistakes that people make due to bad planning. So we can have an example like my favorite place in the park, or my favorite place is the park. I go there sometimes. It's nice and quiet. I like it. Done. 20 seconds with no detail, no development, and that just leaves you looking and admiring the examiner. So, which is not really required in this test, right? We do not need to admire the examiner. The examiner wants to listen to what we have to say. So an expanded point would be, I usually go to Central Park every Sunday morning. The main reason I love it is the atmosphere. It's peaceful, especially near the lake where you can hear birds singing, right? So expansion is there, idea generation is there. So, and this all comes from planning, by the way, all right? So, like I said, good planning will leave you with a good response meeting that 2 minute mark. Okay, so let's look at a cue card example of this. Describe a holiday that you enjoy. Okay, so let's look at the bad answer. Would be, I enjoy Christmas. It's fun. We eat food and meet family. I like it. That's all. Hmm. The mere fact that we say that's all shows the examiner like no ideas left. Empty. But the good answer would be, one holiday I really enjoy is Christmas. It is when we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. And what makes it special is the family gathering at my grandmother's house. She prepares a lot of food like roast lamb and a lot of desserts. And we spend the whole day visiting relatives and exchanging gifts. It is such an exciting time. So, with the bad answer, we just merely spent 15 seconds with no elaboration, no detail at all, and no personal experience, which will definitely bring us below the 2 minute mark for speaking. So also this affects our fluency as we have no ideas to speak for that 2 minutes. So this is the bad example, which is speaking too short, a mistake which is commonly made in the IELTS speaking test as well. Okay, so let's go to mistake number 3. So another mistake people generally make, this is basically due to wanting to pass the IELTS test, and we all want to do that, right? But we must do it in a way that is natural, right? So we cannot use memorized script, which may sound like we want to impress the examiner, right? With our high-end vocabulary, or just something that is memorized and we just read through it without pausing, without having the correct stress at the correct points in the response. So this can sound rather robotic, and the examiners are well trained to detect this kind of response when it is memorized. So we want to avoid that. How can we avoid that though? We need to build our vocabulary, right? That's really important. Having a good vocabulary bank for different types of topics is important. And yeah, going over different cue cards can help us because then we kind of familiarize ourselves with what kind of vocabulary banks we need to build, and that will help us in future questions, and it will definitely help us when we are taking the IELTS test. So a cue card example regarding this would be like if a cue card read, describe a skill you learned recently. Now, a bad answer would look like this. I would like to talk about a very interesting experience. This unforgettable moment taught me valuable lessons that I will cherish for the rest of my life. It was truly a turning point. Okay, a couple things to talk about here. What was the experience, right? This answer is so general, so generic. It doesn't say what the experience was, where you learned it, who taught it to you. You learned it on YouTube, you learned it on in a recipe book, your grandmother taught it to you. Nothing of that sort is here, which makes it really bad because it's really general, no personal touch at all, right? So a good answer would be, I recently taught myself basic cooking, right? I started with simple recipes like pasta and gradually tried more challenging dishes. It was frustrating at first because I kept burning things, but now I can actually make a decent stir fry, which my family appreciates. So immediately you see here, personal touch, what you learned, and how does it relate to your everyday life now. So those are the things that I'm missing when it comes to memorizing a script, because those things are not there. So let's be sure to try and avoid memorizing scripts, as that can do you more harm than good. Alright, so let's look at the next mistake. Mistake number 4. So another mistake we have to avoid is to avoid ignoring the bullet points. So guys, the bullet points are there. There are 4 of them. They are there for a reason, not for a trap, right? They are there to guide us. But again, like I said, don't let the bullet points restrict you in such a way that your fluency now is compromised. Okay, so fluency matters a lot, but also sticking to the topic matters a lot as well. So how are we to address this, right? So in our 1 minute prep time, we are to make sure that we jot down one keyword at least for each of the bullet points. The what, the where, the who, with, and the why. So make sure we use our 1 minute prep time very wisely, like we've said before. If we have to look at a cue card example of this, the example would be on the cue card. It reads, describe a trip you took, where it was, when it was, with who it was, and why you enjoyed it. So let's look at the bad answer here. I went to Istanbul. The mosques were amazing. The bazaars and food were incredible, especially the kebabs and baklava. I loved the street food there. Okay, so here we see we only addressed the where and described the sites that we visited, and we just completely ignored the when it was, who it was with, and why we enjoyed it. Totally ignored that, which is very bad, and it will affect our band score very much. So our good answer will be, last summer I visited Istanbul with my 2 closest friends. We spent a week exploring the city, the Blue Mosque, the Grand Bazaar, the street food. I especially enjoyed it because it was our first trip abroad together and we made so many unforgettable memories. So, guys, let's be sure to address all the bullet points and don't ignore any of them. But remember, keep the fluency there. So, let's look at the fifth mistake that people usually make in the IELTS speaking test, stopping abruptly. So, for example, after the 2 minutes is up and the examiner says thank you, and you just stop, right? Without even closing the sentence nicely, right? That's basically your goodbye, right? You want to say bye in a proper way. So it is with a sentence closing. You want to close the sentence well. So even when the examiner says thank you, we can close sentences in a proper manner by learning phrases, right? Closing phrases that we can use. For example, we can use so. That's basically why I enjoy it so much. So that's how I learned to cook. Overall, it's a place that really means a lot to me. What's worse, uh, maybe after a minute and you just say, that's it. No speaking after that. That's a really bad place to be, right? So we don't want to be there. So like we said earlier in the memorizing of script mistake, we are to increase our vocabulary banks, right? So um, that will help us not to stop before 2 minutes, and it will help us to speak for that 2 minutes. Um, and when the examiner says thank you, we need to close it well after the 2 minutes as well. Okay, so our cue card example for this one would be describe a person who inspires you. So the bad answer would be my teacher inspires me because she's kind. She's always she always encourages us to yeah, that's it, right? So this is the example of when we are too short, when we have no idea generation at all. So this answer was barely 10 seconds, right? So let's look at the good answer, and we can use the closing phrase for this. Seeing that the 2 minutes are have elapsed, right? So the good answer would be my high school English teacher really inspires me. She had this way of making every student feel capable even when we struggled. She once told me that mistakes are just proof of you are trying, and that really stuck with me, right? Okay, 2 minutes are up. That doesn't mean we need to just stop there, right? We close with overall, she's someone who genuinely shaped who I am today. So that's how we close the sentence well, showing the examiner, I had this idea, I want to close, even though my 2 minutes are up, right? Okay, so let's avoid these type of mistakes where we just stop abruptly, right? Okay, so so let's look at key takeaways from this video that we can carry forward in our IELTS journeys. So guys, at the end of every lesson, there's always it's always good to have key takeaways, something that we can remember moving forward, and something that can tell us this lesson was really impactful for me, and this is what I would take away from this lesson. So let's look at the key takeaways from this lesson. Point number one, we are to stay on topic all the time. right? So always go back to the topic. Even if you're drifting away, always relate back and to say, what I really wanted to say is, and maybe go back to the topic, redirect yourself, right? Point number two, speak enough. Aim for 2 minutes and definitely aim for 1.5 minutes and above. Expansion of answers is needed, detailed reasons as well, right? Be natural, don't memorize a script. Examiners know when you are memorizing or when you have memorized answers, and they will penalize you. Your band score will drop. Okay, be natural. Point number four, cover all the bullet points. Remember, the bullet points are there to help you, to guide you, but I will say it again, don't let it affect your fluency. Make sure you cover all the points, but fluency needs to also be there. Number five, end smoothly. So let's try and look at closing phrases that we can use when we are ending the talk. Also, if you speak for less than 2 minutes, we also need to look at building our vocabulary bank so we can get to the 2 minutes. Okay, so these are the key takeaways, guys, that we can take moving forward in our IELTS journeys together. So guys, thank you so much for being a part of Zane's English Lounge today again. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe for more IELTS content. And as always, leave a comment in the section below telling me about your IELTS challenges, or even just leaving me a comment that you would like. That would be amazing. Guys, thank you so much once again. I really appreciate your support, and it really means a lot to me. I'll see you again on Zane's English Lounge. Bye.